Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, beautiful soul family, and welcome to Weekly Wisdom and Insights, your home for spiritually guided transformation and empowerment. I am your host, Dearjames, and together with the unseen, Spirit, Source, and Symphony, we look at the current energies, the intuitive wisdom, and we go as guided. And we have beautiful energies, and they're a bit of a combination. There's this powerful energies at this moment, and then we're building up to something that's going to occur next Monday on the 15th. But not to bury the lead, let's stay with the current energies. Welcome, Olivia. Welcome, Alicia. And our main theme came to me. I was watching a video of the Dutch tenors covering Adele's When We Were Young. And they got to a point in the song where they kept repeating When We Were Young. And it was about that time that, the universe, the unseen, kind of went, wow. And I was like, yeah. Okay, that's the main theme. So let me just bring up our image of the main theme. And I can put my specs on. There we go. I can see what I'm doing. And there we are. And so what the unseen is saying to all of us in this moment and these powerful energies is this feeling of nostalgia of when we were young. And you can see in the image, it's a little teddy bear looking out with a kind of a rain-soaked glass window with these glistening hearts out beyond. And it's reminding us, welcome Ava, and it's reminding all of us at this moment, and we're going to see as well because Venus is playing a huge role this week, but in the greater aspect, the greater picture, the message is about when we look back to a time that we find nostalgia in, that we love, that we want to preserve and protect and maybe hold, stop time in. The unseen is saying to us through that moment of energy of innocence and youth and joy and love and happiness. It's not that we're meant to go back in time. However, we are meant to harness that energy, that feeling, that wisdom, that joy, the innocence of it in moving forward. Why? Because it's the first thing from the unseen, and they said, nostalgia, ... A better, greater time awaits, arrives. And yet there's this, and so we harness the power of nostalgia, of when we were young, of innocence, to know, to utilize that energy, to stay centered, to stay happy, to stay peaceful, to stay joyful. because a better, greater time arrives. It's not about going back to recapture something or to relive it. It is about to harness that power moving forward. And it's like in the song by Adele, we were sad of getting old. It made us restless. It was just like a movie. It was just like a song when we were young. And so it pulls at our heartstrings. It tugs at our core, at our center. It reminds us of good times, of times that brought us joy. And the unseen is very powerfully in this week where Venus plays a role, such a prominent role, is to remember that goodness, that nostalgia, that love to carry us forward. Not back, forward. Welcome, Deborah. And so let's beam into the main energies, well, actually the astrological influences, because here, as you see on the screen, it's all about Venus, Venus, Venus. And Venus is the Roman god of love and beauty. She heralds good fortune, abundance. She represents love, beauty, abundance, fertility, all of these beautiful things. And in the tarot, she's represented by the Empress. And as you see on the screen, the Empress, she's sitting on her throne. She has the heart, her symbol. She has this crown of 12 stars. She has the full globe illuminated, meaning she's all-knowing, river of life, all of this green abundance with the forest. She's pregnant, so she's bringing forth new life. She has the golden wheat at her feet and everything. Note the red slippers slipping out from underneath of her robe. And so in the tarot, Venus is the Empress. She's represented as the Empress. It's number 3. So it's representing the Trinity. So as we come back, though, to the astrological influences, on the 8th, Venus sextiles Uranus. Sextiles and trines are harmonious aspects. So here's Venus and Uranus. So the higher mind, the goddess of love and beauty, and Uranus, the higher mind, the unexpected, the god of chaos, coming into harmony, working together. On the 11th, tomorrow of July, Venus trines Neptune and Venus enters Leo. So again, a sextile and a trine are harmonious aspects in astrology. So Venus and Neptune. She's sending a beam. Neptune speaks about the higher mind, the fantasy, the dreams, what we hope and wish for at its highest octave. And then it can represent illusion. But here's again the goddess of love and beauty, reminding us innocence when we were young. Our hopes, our dreams, our wishes, our desires for a better world, they're coming together. And then Venus enters Leo, the sign of Leo. And it was so interesting when I had Katy Perry's song Roar. And this whole sense of how the divine feminine entering Venus, entering Leo, the proud lion, and that when you look at the lyrics of the song, it's all about how I was kept down, I didn't use my voice, perhaps I was in the shadows and so forth. However, I'm going to roar. It's my time. And we've been speaking about this, how it's the divine feminine's time. It's the Aquarian age. It is the matriarchal era, and how the divine feminine is no longer oppressed, suppressed, absent a voice, not given a voice. She is taking her rightful place, the Empress. She is taking her rightful place of prominence, of authority, of governance, of equanimity, of love, of beauty. And she is on her throne, abundant, pregnant with opportunity, with abundance, with the fertility of what is to come. A better, greater time awaits and arrives. And she's harnessing both the power, but also the nostalgia. You know, when we were young, this innocence, this time that we remember that was good. Life was good. And we are ready for that feeling, that joy again. It's tough out there. We've talked about the chaos last week. So it's just about moving through this, moving through with Venus in the lead. So let me go back here. And last but not least, on the 12th, so literally a day after Venus enters Leo, she opposes Pluto that's retrograde. And so again, Pluto's going back to, shake the tree again, to finish up business. And yet Venus is there in this opposition. It's like we can see the struggle, this power struggle that's going on. And this is why it's interesting coming up on Monday, Mars conjunct Uranus, and it's conjunct Algol. And Algol is a fixed star in the head of Medusa. We're going to cover that next week. There's a kind of a 2-week span, but it's a very volatile Mars, Uranus, Algol. But what the Venus opposition with Pluto is, you can see that in essence, the old guard, the patriarchal rule, the Piscean era, does not want to give way to the new. They want to cling to power. They want to hold on to power. They do not want to lose power. And okay, rightfully so, one can say, you understand that this Piscean era has been going on for 2,000 plus years. And so people are conditioned, in a sense, to a certain way of understanding and being and operating. However, we speak about this a lot. The arc of destiny moves forward. Everything in our universe is ever evolving, ever changing, ever advancing, ever unfolding. Have we ever seen historically in our lifetimes of knowledge and wisdom and history where time went back, the unseen in the universe went and said, hey, wow, the 1950s were so great that we're going to go back and repeat it. No, of course not. The arc of destiny moves forward. And so here, where it's Venus, 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 representing the divine feminine, matriarchal era and rule, Aquarian era, she's both walking hand in hand with other heavy hitters, and at the same time bumping up against the opposition to it. Now, we've talked a lot, and this image kept coming up over and over in the last few days. And it was this image, and I'm going to put it up on the screen, of this train. It's that train station, the old train is coming in. And what you see on the screen is a vintage train crossing a stone bridge. And ultimately what I've been seeing in my mind's eye is that this train on this bridge is suspended, like there's an abyss below it. And this is the train that's coming into the station that's ending. It represents the era that is ending. And in my mind's eye, what the unseen has been showing me is imagine all of these humans hanging by their fingertips, hanging by a thread from the outside of the windows. Outside of this train, vintage train, it's not a modern train, it's a vintage train, representing the past. And they're cleaving to the outside, they're hanging on by a thread, dangling over this bridge, over this expansive gorge. Now, directly to the right of it is the platform of the train. So on the left of this platform, the image I just described, the one you see on your screen, this vintage train, people are hanging on by a thread by their fingertips outside the windows, on this bridge, over this expansive gorge. And then you move and you look to the right, and you see the train that's leaving the station, that's departing. And everybody that's in the right-hand car, the right train, literally and figuratively, the right train, is absolutely peaceful, happy, joyful. They're going somewhere. They have anticipation and excitement, renewal, all of these things. They're excited about it. And then they're looking over, they just kind of glance over and look to the left. And the feeling is this awareness of, why are you doing that? Why are you cleaving to the past? Why are you hanging on to by a thread? It's the end of the line. And there's kind of a bewilderment about, why are you doing that? While simultaneously a joy, because they're on the right train and that train's leaving, it's departing the station, it's going somewhere. And we've talked about this a lot. It's like, get on that train. You have a choice and you have the ability to cross the platform and change trains and get on the right train, because ultimately and eventually that old train ends. It is the end of the line. And just to bring up the image again, it's the end of the line. It's hanging on by a thread. And it's over an abyss, just like an endless, bottomless abyss. And to what degree you hang on like that and suffer like that, and when you could easily cross the platform and get on the other train. Because it's going places. And that is the greater arc of the story with this innocence, when we were young, nostalgia, a better, greater time awaits and arrives. Because that train is taking us there. And that train is the divine feminine. It is the matriarchal era. It is the Aquarian era. So main energies, it's a 7-month, all month long. So it's this army, legions, correct discipline. It's having and remembering that we have everything we need. 10, treading, cautious advance. It's moving forward. We are, and the unseen is talking about, remember from last week, they were saying that, we'll start off nice and easy. We're going to finish nice and rough. But in essence, what's encapsulated in that is a finality, a finish. And then obviously it's our key word, which we'll come to, Renaissance, and I'll explain that in a minute. But it's cautious advance. Take the necessary steps. Keep taking them, one upon the other. Do not become overwhelmed. Just keep taking the necessary steps. 2024 is an 8-year, all year long, and it represents the uniting and from the inside out, that we are coming together individually from our ego, mind, personality, our heart, our soul source connection. All of it's coming together to be unified. 16, enthusiasm, excite. And you'll see how this plays on this theme of innocence and Venus with love, and love about not just romantic love or relationship love, but this love for a time, an era, a way of being, a world. Love encompasses such a vast spectrum of emotions and opportunity. So it's not just romantic love. It's love for something, love for an ideal, love for a way of being is the greater meaning here. And then 7 is, again, we double down, double sevens. This army, legions, correct discipline. So knowing that we have everything we need, get on the right train, embark, take the steps, and harness the power of nostalgia for that, the way we were, when we were young, that innocence. Because don't forget too, at the pinnacle of the Piscean era, there's a sense of decades where we were in the flow of a really great time. We were not in chaos or conflict. Yes, it occurred, but not in the way that it is now, because the crescendo of the moment is louder because we're at a place of a peaceful transfer of power, a place of transfer of power. And remember, for the world, that was demonstrated. The lack of peaceful transfer of power was demonstrated in the United States at the 2020 election. And so it's epitomizing what's taking place, because there is a handover from patriarchal to matriarchal, Piscean to Aquarian. And the ideal that America has always represented, democracy, this ideal, was this thing that we talk about when we were young. The ideal becomes the new reality. That's number 5 with the unseen this week. The ideal, and they've spoken about this a lot, the ideal. And what's the ideal? It's what we've been climbing and striving for, humanity. Love, goodness, purity, sovereignty, freedom, equality. That's the ideal, this utopia. The ideal becomes the new reality. And it's number 5, it's an exclamation point. So they're really speaking, the unseen is really speaking to this fait accompli, that equanimity, everything that Venus and the Empress represents, the divine feminine represents, nourishment, love, goodness, purity, sovereignty, freedom, abundance, becomes the new reality. Period. End of story. Have a nice day. Doesn't get any better than this. Which is why they're saying nostalgia, a better, greater time awaits. It arrives. So let's take a look at the astrological chart. And this is for when Venus enters Leo. So here's the divine feminine entering the sign that epitomizes the divine masculine. And look at all of these, the blue kites, triangles. These are trines and sextiles. They're all harmonious aspects. And at the pinnacle, the upper points of the peak of the pyramids, if you will, on the right, it's the sun, our life force, and it's Venus. The sun is at 19 degrees Cancer, and Venus is at 0 degrees Leo. And if you go to the top of the chart, you see the moon, the symbol for the moon. It's also at the midheaven. You come down that line, you see Mars and Uranus. There's where Mars and Uranus are going to conjunct on Monday coming up. And then further down below at the blue, you see the symbol, the black symbol for Saturn, and just to its right is a blue symbol denoting Neptune. So there's all these harmonious blue aspects. And also to the far left in blue is the symbol for Pluto retrograde. Now, again, come Monday, a few days out, you're going to see how Venus will move from 0 degrees Leo to 1 degrees Leo, and she will be directly opposite 1 degrees Aquarius, where Pluto retrograde is. But the moral of this story, the beauty of it is that, again, here's Venus playing with all of these leading, playing, standing her ground. Katy Perry, roar. We're going to roar. You're going to hear me roar. Because the divine feminine is back. The divine feminine is taking charge. And that's nothing to be afraid of. It's nothing to fear. We are all comprised of divine masculine and divine feminine. The problem, after 2,000 plus years of patriarchal Piscean rule, is that the divine masculine has gotten heavy-handed, way out of balance, way out of control. Because again, we want and we need a healthy ego-mind personality, a healthy Mars, a healthy patriarch. Absolutely need it. What we don't need Is it oppressing, suppressing, diminishing, dividing, all of this stuff? It's all shadow. You know what? It's all shadow. And so, of course, there's fear, because here comes the divine feminine. And the Lady Jacqueline and I were just speaking yesterday. And this component of how just a divine feminine, a woman, can intimidate. She's just being her. And she can intimidate the masculine. It triggers their shadow. Well, equally, this equality, sovereignty, equality, triggers the patriarch shadow, because they will no longer solely be in charge. And for the last 100-ish plus years, I mean, it's been a man's world. Maybe it's longer than that, 2,000 plus years of Piscean rule, but again, there was a transfer. There was that period where the Renaissance and the era where the troubadours, the courtly love, where the divine feminine was revered. They were equals. But there was a transition. And then it became that they became chattel and property and no voice and no vote and all of this, which meant that the divine masculine did a disservice to themselves, because they diminished that aspect of themselves that was good, soft, kind, and not soft as in weak, but softer, soft. That, again, you didn't have to spill blood on a battlefield to win a war. You could use your mind and your intellect and your reason and your passion and compassion to equally win the day. Find compromise. And that word compromise became a dirty word. In the US, it became a dirty word. And it should never compromise. Collaboration, unity, coming together. That brings out the best in us, not the worst. And no, not everyone gets everything when we compromise. But you do walk away feeling seen, feeling heard, having come to common ground. And that is what the divine feminine does best. It seeks understanding. It seeks wisdom. It seeks compromise. It seeks nourishment and abundance, joy, happiness, love. It is not out seeking war. It is not out seeking domination or total domination. It's the antithesis. So let's bring up our keyword, because it goes hand in hand with all of this. And the keyword is Renaissance. And that is such a perfect word, because Renaissance is a French word meaning rebirth. It refers to a period in European civilization that was marked by a revival of classical learning and wisdom. So the classics, this when we were young, this nostalgia, there's classics in wisdom and learning. It's known as a movement or period of vigorous artistic and intellectual activity. Rebirth, revival, a change for the better, progress in development. So our key word and our key energy, Venus, 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 Renaissance, a change for the better, progress and development, renewal, revival, powerful times. And remember, from the unseen said to us at the beginning of this year that from August on, it was a mixed bag of nuts and surprises. And yet, go, go, go. There's nothing to worry about, nothing you can't do or accomplish. Persevere, prevail, and rise up. rise up from a state of centeredness. What's at your center? So let's look at some of the Sabian symbols, because these are fascinating. And they go with this, they represent both. I pulled the Sabian symbols from Dane Rudhyar's and an astrological mandala, and I pulled them for both Venus entering Leo and for the next day where Venus opposes Pluto. So we're looking at this in what 1 degree. The inner planets will move. The outer planets, of course, take longer. They're slower moving. So the symbol for Venus, for Leo, Venus entering Leo, blood rushes to a man's head as his vital energies are mobilized under the spur of ambition. So you can see this vital energies and blood rushing to your head. It's very Mars, it's very Leo, it's very divine masculine, patriarchal. And they said the keynote is an eruption of biopsychic energies into the ego-controlled field of consciousness. So we have an eruption coming from the unseen, biopsychic energies, coming into consciousness, so into our awareness. We're going to experience it. The occult tradition, meaning the wisdom tradition, speaks of 3 kinds of fire: electric fire, solar fire, and fire by friction. The first is electric fire, is represented by Aries, solar fire is represented by Leo, and fire by friction is Sagittarius. The key symbol for Leo depicts a rising of energy from the heart to the head, a mentalization process, meaning we've got to be able to process the heart, Venus, love, this innocence when we were young, the nostalgia, the ideal. We got to bring it from the heart and be able to process it, bring it to life, materialize it through a mentalization process. However, this process is a potentially dangerous one. Thus, the original wording of the symbolic scene seen by the clairvoyant referred to a, quote, a case of apoplexy, unconsciousness or incapacity resulting from a cerebral hemorrhage or stroke. Well, when we disconnect from our heart center, from our soul source connection, when we are absolutists, when we are all in our ego, mind, personality, in our head, this unconsciousness or incapacity resulting from a cerebral hemorrhage or stroke. It's like, because the electronics, the system short circuits. It's heated, Mars, angry, Leo, fire. It says, just as a person standing with their head uncovered for a long time in tropical regions could get sunstroke, the sun can destroy as well as vivify. Without its symbolical mate, water, so divine masculine, water, divine feminine, it produces deserts on earth. It's scorched earth. The realization of Atman, the spiritual self, the existence of a formed and steady ego, provided the ego can become a lens of pure crystal, focusing the all-pervasive cosmic light of the Brahman without introducing the shadows of pride, possessiveness, and showmanship. So what this is talking about is the fact that we're looking for this realization of the spiritual self that's formed by a steady ego, not an erratic one, not an unconscious one. And that when we do that, it's because we're able to focus the lens. This pure crystal lens is focused on the cosmic light, the purity of it, without introducing shadows, pride, possessiveness, control, showmanship, oppression, suppression. It says, but this provided, meaning we can do this provided, raises a very large question. The transmutation of life into mind is a difficult process. It's about maintaining the innocence, the purity, the ideal. And and that's a difficult process, because when we don't, we're in shadowland. And what's happening? They're clinging on the outside of that nostalgic train on over a ravine, an abyss, clinging to it. The keynote of combustion for the entire series of 15 phases hardly needs interpretation, because we're talking about the next 15 phases of Leo. In a general sense, the key word for this first degree of Leo could be conflagration. Conflagration, an extensive fire which destroys a great deal of land or property. Scorched earth. So when we go scorched earth, nobody wins. Everybody loses. The energies of the biological drives as they the energies of the biological drives as they erupt forcefully into the field of consciousness. Mars and Uranus conjunct, coming up on Monday. There's extreme heat happening. Mars and Uranus are in Taurus, an earth sign, fixed earth. So this is talking about the fact that this first symbol for Venus in Leo 1 degrees, she's entering Leo, is making us aware that these imbalanced energies may erupt forcefully into the field of consciousness, meaning, and we're seeing Hurricane Beryl. There's these heat, 128, set a new world record, 128 degrees in Death Valley in California. So fires, natural disasters, natural occurrences, as well as human consciousness. Because what's it pushing against? Divine Feminine, Aquarian Age, this peaceful transfer of power. Leo 2 is when Venus moves that 1 degree to be directly opposite Pluto, retrograde. An epidemic of the mumps, and this is a fascinating symbol. It says everything. So bear with me and pay attention really closely. An epidemic of the mumps. The keynote is the spreading power of individual crises through a collectivity. This symbol should be interpreted at 2 levels without evading the issues posed by its original wording. What does an epidemic imply, and why mumps? The broad meaning of an epidemic is that one individual, when infected by a certain type of disease, can spread the disease to a vast number of persons in their environment, and in some cases, all over the globe. So we can think in terms of COVID, AIDS, the mumps, measles, any type of, but it's one individual can infect the globe. In the preceding symbol, we were confronted with the individual crisis, and its dangerous possibilities for the individual were implied. Leo 1. So where the impurities, the shadow, can affect the individual. Now in this Leo 2nd degree, we're looking at how that one individual can infect the globe, all of humanity. Now we deal with a process that affects the entire society. This obviously points out that the whole of mankind is potentially affected by, and thus, consciously or not, cannot help being involved in the critical situations faced by any individual or special group of people. Why then an epidemic of mumps? A childhood disease is implied, but it may have very serious consequences for adult men who catch it, since it affects not only all lymphatic glands, the mumps infect the lymphatic glands, especially in the neck region, but also the testicles, the reproductive system of the male. If the sign Aries symbolizes birth as a natural organism on this earth, Leo represents, at least potentially, rebirth. So Renaissance, rebirth. At the level of the conscious and mind-based individuality. Thus, in Leo, man and woman, in this sense, is as yet only a little child. One might say a would-be initiate, an infant in spirit. So here we are in our infantile stages, innocence, when we were young, nostalgia, rebirth. The relation of the mumps to the sexual glands is characteristic. For the entrance into the realm of the conscious and individualized mind can affect the sex force, either through overstimulation or irritation, or in terms of deliberate ascetic deprivation. This second stage symbol also provides a contrast with the first. What was an individual issue is now seen as a collective danger. Thus, we are dealing with the infectious spread of individual experiences. The unseen has been saying to us, we're drawing a line in the sand. You're being seen, you're being counted. What's at your center? What side of the line are you on? Are you hanging on by a thread on the end of the line train outside the window? And is your individual consciousness, mentality, absolutism spreading like an infectious disease? We have on the world stage in single individuals that speak to this dynamic, that are attempting to infect the whole with this dis-ease. Disease, but dis-ease. And this is particularly potent as it strikes at the heart of the reproductive system of the male. So it's going to the heart of the matter. Leo, lion, heart, male sexual reproductive system, the mumps. These are the analogies. The point is that it's going to the heart of that. Doesn't mean that women are excluded. It just means that it is heightened in the divine masculine. And again, who is it that is responsible for the the peaceful transfer of power? The divine masculine. The divine masculine aspect of all of us. Not just males, but the divine aspect, the divine male aspect in all of us. We are to see that we are to responsibly, peacefully transfer the power of leadership of this era to the divine feminine in us. Soul source connection, divine feminine, lead with your soul, takes the lead. Ego, mind, personality, divine masculine, seeds, transfers, peacefully transfers the leadership role. And thus, we are being called to activate, to rise up with our divine feminine. Doesn't matter, male, female, transgender, gay, straight, black, white, blue, purple, it does not matter, because we have both within us. So the divine feminine rising, and we must all consciously allow and encourage and lead that the divine masculine within us seeds power. The divine feminine accepts the power, and we shift the balance. We shift the equilibrium. We shift into the new era, the way we go about living leading, breathing, speaking, interacting. We shift. It is not one over the other. It is not killing one over the other or denying one over the other. It's bringing them into balance, into harmony. Pluto is at that second degree of Aquarius. It's 1 degree as you advance it for the Sabian symbols by 1 degree. An unexpected thunderstorm. The need to develop the inner security which will enable us to meet unexpected crises. And this whole symbol, it's an unexpected thunderstorm. It could be given a very positive meaning in an arid environment, but the emphasis on unexpected tends to accent the sudden and dangerous character of the event. Such a thunderstorm in a region of dry hills can cause a devastating flood. At any rate, it refers to an event for which one is not prepared, a menace to men's works. Pluto is going back and shaking the tree, the roots of our foundation, our foundations, our governments, our institutions, corporations, businesses, our souls. It is shaking us. It is to place us in a larger container, to expand us. Not to kill us, but to expand us, to advance us. The sun is at, and it says that this is nature's challenge, because in essence, what the unseen Pluto is saying, it's saying this symbol stresses the fact that nature may reduce to impermanence the seemingly most permanent endeavors and constructive activities of humankind. That's what it's doing. Now, we have a choice. We can get on board. We can be proactive. We can be positive. And we will have a far easier transfer of power and advance. Don't do it? Oh, okay. But that's up to each one of us, individually and collectively. The sun, its position speaks to Venetian gondoliers giving a serenade. So again, this, there's a nostalgia about, there's a romanticism, it represents love, the feel-good feelings of being in a gondola, and the canals of Venice in Italy or something. And it says the keynote is happiness as an overtone of social integration and conformity to custom. Happiness as an overtone of unity, social integration, coming together. Not dividing us, but coming together. And it speaks to festivity. Now, when the sun then advances for when Venus opposes Pluto retrograde, this is another very important one. A famous singer is proving her virtuosity during an operatic performance. The keynote is the emotional reward accompanying cultural excellence. So the emotional reward, love, nostalgia, when we were young, innocence, better times, it's an emotion. We feel it. So an emotional reward accompanying cultural excellence. If anything represents the type of response that a well-developed society gives to the individual who successfully pours their energy into the skillful externalization of the great images of its culture, it is the opera. The operatic prima donna is not merely a lonely performer like the piano virtuoso. He or she is the star in a collective effort. The opera is not only music, but a story, a mythos, which embodies some of the most basic images and emotions characterizing the culture that it gave birth to. It's what comes from our hearts, our souls, our passion, our compassion, our empathy. It's all of these things. Euro-American culture is indeed extolled or condemned by its operas and their lurid and tragic passions. It is interesting to compare the opera with the equivalent type of social performances and their topics in India, Java, or Tibet. At this stage, we find the drive toward individualization by means of concrete forms of cultural activity, glorified in social and financial success. So we have this drive towards individualism brought on by the means of concrete forms of cultural activity glorified in social and financial success. In its deepest sense, this symbol refers to, quote, the price of success for the individual as well as for the collective acclaiming him or her. What is success really worth? A question few people ask. And so we're being drawn, the unseen, with this Sabian symbol, with Venus, 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 this time. What is success really worth? To what ends? To what means? To what deprivation? To what destruction? To what division? A question few people ask. Because if to be successful means that you oppress and suppress and divide and destroy and dismantle and diminish, is that success? And if it is your definition of success, it's a dark one. So this Sabian symbol is very powerful. Mars, the symbol for Mars. An Indian warrior riding fiercely, human scalps hanging from his belt. The keynote, the aggressiveness of human instincts when fighting for their earthly base of operation. You see a lot of divine masculine in these symbols that were being Pluto retrograde, showing us the underbelly of the Piscean patriarchal 2000 plus year era. In the mythology of early America, the Indian represents, quote, the savage, close to nature and led by primordial instincts. Alas, our present century has revealed that under far less imperative circumstances, so-called civilized man is capable of far more cruel tortures and extermination. This symbol related to a fourth stage seems to imply, the fourth foundational, that violence and aggressiveness are basic components of human nature at the level of the emotions and of a deep-seated identification with a particular culture which insists on regarding men of other cultures as potential enemies. It's at the base. It's like it's the animalistic base, and we're buying in to a belief that, because it's emotion, it's deep-seated identity and emotion, that with a particular culture that insists on regarding humans of other cultures as potential enemies. What is being confirmed here is the value of a group of men's differences from other groups. Divide, division. They're your enemy. They're your problem. They're the reason you don't have something. It speaks to the least in us. We are still in the period of differentiation, and the need for a differentiation of human behavior and collective values is still very strong. At the emotional level, man apparently still must believe in violence for survival. Venus, Venus, Venus. Love, abundance, beauty, harmony, equanimity, opportunity. Are we a society that believes, or that is going to continue to believe, that our survival is based on violence, or is our survival based on love? Which is it? The second symbol, as when we advance the chart, when Venus opposes Pluto, a vast public park. The keynote, the cultivation of natural energies for collective use and recreation, unity, unifying ourselves. A vast public park. So we're cultivating natural energies for collective use and recreation. This is a symbol of collective enjoyment. See, they're on the right train. They're all there. They're all happy. They're all excited. They know they're going. So there's anticipation. There's joy. There's peace because they're going somewhere. The individual finds in the products of their culture an emotional enhancement born of the feeling of, quote, belonging to a large, organized, peaceful whole. WHOLE. One nation, one world, one being, belonging to a large, organized, peaceful whole. And how we collectively utilize this. The moon that reveals, represents the divine feminine, represents what's hidden, gets revealed. A boy with a censer serves the priest near the altar, the keynote, the first stage of actual participation in the great ritual of planetary evolution. This is the first act. This is where we make our choice. We choose to be on the right train. We choose unity. We choose love, innocence, when we were young, nostalgia, that feeling, that emotion, and we harness it to deliver ourselves. Whether we think of the ancient mysteries or of a Catholic Mass or of some still more transcendent ceremony in which great beings charged with planetary responsibilities are involved, we are dealing with a type of archetypal activity. The ritual is archetypal in that it represents, in however small a field of activity, a portion of the evolving structure of the cosmos. As this structure is understood in its sacred sense, it matters what we do. The choices you make, the words you use, the actions, the steps, they matter. Everything is purposeful. It's sacred. Every such activity is performed, quote, in the presence of God. Menial as it may be, it nevertheless acquires a sacred meaning. This stage brings us to the close of the first half of the cycle. The individual is educated, meaning led out into the world of transcendent activity, transparency, and its transcendent. The world of archetypal performance. They must learn to serve humbly and with intense attention, consciousness, in what is yet beyond their spiritual understanding. It's cheap and easy to be negative, to reside in the shadow, to diminish, destroy, oppress, suppress, demean. It's cheap, it's easy. So here it's saying they must learn to serve humbly and with intense attention in what is yet beyond their spiritual understanding. It may be outside of you, or it may be hard to show up in a more positive way. But do it. They learn to perform every action super personally, meaning through their soul source connection, anything's possible, everything's possible, and you're delivered, you're led, you're guided. It's true north. It will never not be true north. They learn to, quote, practice in the presence of God. There's a piece of scripture in Revelations that talks about that at the second coming and the presence of Master Jesus and so forth, that people run and hide in caves and all this other stuff. They learn to practice in the presence of God. You can't hide from the unseen, from Spirit, Source, Symphony, God, Allah, Buddha, you can't hide. It's a fool's errand. It's impossible. And what this is speaking to is transparency. It's speaking to the fact we're drawing a line in the sand. You're being seen, you're being counted. So practice in the presence of God. What you do Make sure it's the right thing. It's pure of it. The purity of intention is present. It's not shadow. It's not illicit in nature. Again, it's not hard. You just have to choose it. You just have to do it. And when we fall short, rebound. Own, atone, release, and move forward. But own it, atone for it, and then release it, move forward. And we pick ourselves back up and we keep going. Last but not least, the final is for the moon when Venus opposes Pluto retrograde. A man watches his ideals taking a concrete form before his inner vision. The keynote, the need to visualize clearly one's dreams or ideals. The ideal becomes the new reality. The need to visualize clearly one's dreams or ideals to make them truly effectual. According to a French proverb, pardon me, what is well conceived can easily be formulated. The process of interior visualization can be quite essential, except in the case of a creative individual who has become a totally pure channel for the descent of spiritual power, and a clear lens through which the archetype in the mind of man or God can be projected without distortion wherever needed. So remember, these two symbols, they're talking about how we come heart-based from the center, this clear lens, and how when we visualize internally from this pure channel that is a descent of spiritual power, it is your soul source connection coming down through you. The archetype in the mind of man or God can be projected without distortion. If it's ego, mind, personality based, it's going to be distorted. It will most likely be distorted. However, when soul source connection, you hear it, you feel it, you hear it, it's a knowing, you receive it, it's going to be pure, and you're going to then harness your ego, mind, personality in service to that ideal or task, whatever it may be. In other cases, the creative act is less direct. A person projects into the world what he or she has seen reflected on the screen of their individualized consciousness. So in other words, ego, mind, personality, if I'm thinking it versus intuitively receiving it, it's a knowing, then we have a difference. It's the two differences, and we know that. So powerful Sabian symbols in concert with Venus, Venus, Venus. She is up front, center, leading the way. The second thing the unseen said was dream big. There you'll realize your greatest potential. So it's not about playing small. It's about rising up from your center, from your soul, and dream big. There you'll realize your greatest potential. Number 3 from the unseen is Love is in the Air. It's a song by John Paul Young. Pardon me. John means Yahweh is gracious. Graced. So the Hebrew God, pardon me, the Hebrew God, Yahweh, or graced by God. Paul, small, humble, and young, of or belonging to youth, youthful. So they're giving us Venus, Venus, Venus. Love is in the air. Graced by God. Yahweh is gracious. Be small and humble and young, of or belonging to youth, youthful, innocence, nostalgia. Number 4, Somewhere Out There. It's a song by Linda Ronstadt and James Ingram. It was featured in An American Tale. Somewhere Out There. And then Elton John and Bernie Taupin's Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. It's like a mashup. And Goodbye Yellow Brick Road was, again, in a reference to when you have this life, this massive life, public life, or you're living the high life, and how the simple life is what you actually yearn for. And somewhere out there, love will see you through. That's the lyrics of the song. All of these will be posted on the Dearjames Facebook page show thread after the fact. But they're making a point here of somewhere out there, love will see you through. And somewhere out there, love is out there for you, will mirror back for you. And also this mashup of Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, that to what degree is success the driving factor? To what end? And then, again, last but not least, was number 5, the ideal becomes the new reality. And they gave us 2 bonus tracks, not the lyrics, but just the title of the song by Aerosmith was Walk This Way. It's like, get on the right train, walk this way. And Katy Perry's Roar. So next week, we are going to dive deep into Mars conjunct Uranus, conjunct Algol. It's on Monday the 15th. There's a 2-week window, and we're going to cover more of this. But right now, what the unseen wants us to know and to harness is the innocence of when we were young. This beautiful, and here's the little teddy bear, the hearts floating out there, the love, the rain on the glass, and the lights of the cities, the light on that tower. Light, love, innocence, renaissance, purity. The ideal becomes the new reality. Can't wait to see you all. Be well and be kind with yourselves and with one another, and we will see you next week.